Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Max from the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library. In today's practical coding Tinker Shop, we are going to learn how to use the programming language Python to edit a spreadsheet. To get this done, we're going to use the web-based code editor called Glitch at glitch.com, which should be a lot of fun. First things first, though, we need some data to wrangle, and I will use as an example a spreadsheet that I'd worked on a few years ago. I was trying to create a database for all the cultural resources in the town of Innisfil, and to do that I made this real large spreadsheet with a lot of place names, their address, and some contact information. And so the plan was we would eventually map these into some interesting interactive map. But first things first, we were collecting data. The way that I had organized this spreadsheet was that I had a column for telephone numbers and a column for emails. The problem that I ran into, though, was that the mapping software we were experimenting with really only had one column reserved for contact information. And so when I would import the data, I would either have to choose between telephone or email, or I would have to find a way to merge these fields. And so I had gone through the work of collecting all this, publicly available information. I put it in a spreadsheet, but just a choice I made early on made it hard for me now to move forward. And so an option might have been to say either, copy one cell, go to the next one, paste it in, and then over and over and over again. That would have probably got pretty old pretty quick, given that there were at least 150 records here that I'm working with. If I was using the built-in spreadsheet tools, yeah, sure, maybe an option would be to just merge those cells horizontally. But of course, merging cells only preserves the top leftmost value. So if I merge the cells, I lose half the information if there was already something in the left-hand column. So also not ideal. Well, a potential solution was to use the programming language Python to just kind of mess with the file and then re-save the data in a different format after making the corrections or additions that I wanted to make. In order to help this along, what I ended up doing was going to the file menu in Google Sheets and then downloading this as a CSV file. So here we have the spreadsheet, and we've probably all dealt with spreadsheets before in one way or another, as maybe a Microsoft Excel file. A CSV file is a plain text file. That means that every line of the file is just written in plain language, and all the data is separated by lines to indicate rows and by commas to indicate columns. And so since it's a plain text format, it makes it really easy to edit the file using Python's built-in tools. And so first thing will be to download this as a CSV file. And I will save a version of that here. That just downloaded. We're going to go to Glitch now, our web-based editor, and just make a new project. Glitch is more about making sort of web-based projects. We're going to use it a little differently, but the advantage is that as we're moving along with these practical coding tutorials, you'll already be comfortable with the tool and be able to maybe jump into making some sort of web-based thing, which could be fun. But for now, we're going to start a new project as a hello web page and just not really use all that functionality right off the top. Once the new project loads, we're going to do some pretty simple stuff. I'm going to pull the file I just downloaded, the mapdata.csv. I'm just going to pop that and drag and drop that into the editor. And then now we have this giant file filled with all this data, but it's arranged pretty logically, let's say. So the very first line are the column headings. So the name, longitude, latitude, street address, website, telephone, email. So that's all just the top columns. And then each line after that is the data, again, separated by commas. So the name, comma, longitude, comma, latitude, comma, and so on and so forth for all the entries in the file. Luckily, we don't have to edit this by hand. We're going to make a brand new file and we're going to call it CSV editor, sure, .py to indicate that it's a Python file. And we're just going to add this file. So our Python file is empty. Let's make it something useful. The programming language, Python, comes with a very extensive standard library where different modules can be imported as they're needed. And so to import the CSV module, we're going to import CSV. And that'll give us access to tools to edit the CSV file. First thing, we're going to open that file using the with keyword. So with open, and then inside these brackets, we'll put the name of our file in quotation marks. And so the name of the file is map data.csv as in file. So the with keyword creates a context manager where you can open files, and then the context manager will automatically close the file. For all sorts of reasons, you want to make sure you close files when you're done with them, when you're working with them in Python. And so the with keyword will give us functionality to access the file and then close it for us automatically. We applied to it a temporary keyword here, in file, a temporary, I should say, variable name. And then we can work with the file with that name. On the right side of the colon, if I press enter, Glitch will automatically indent us an appropriate amount of spaces so that we can continue editing the file. Python is a white space significant language, meaning that this indented block here indicates whatever I type afterward belongs to the code, the line of code above it. So the indentation is very important. What we're going to do is create a reader. So the reader, as a variable, we give it the name reader and a single equal sign. And we're going to use the CSV module and its dict reader capability to read the in file. So the CSV module has a method called dict reader, which will read the contents and put it into a dictionary. And it's going to do that to our in file, which is, of course, the map data.csv. I'm going to define an empty list of resources. So each line in the spreadsheet would be a cultural resource. So that's why this variable is named resources. The variable, of course, begins with giving it a name, putting an equal sign. Then on the right side of the equal sign, giving it something to be. Here I'm going to put two square brackets, left and right, to create an empty list. So the resources variable is just an empty list. Now a quick little for loop. So the for keyword, so for each line in the reader object, we're going to take our resources and append to it each line of content from the reader. And so append is a built-in method for list type objects. And so the resources list we've created, we're going to append onto it each line. And then, just as a check on the data, outside of the whole context manager and outside of the for loop, so all the way indented to the left, we're going to use the built-in function print to print maybe just one line from our resources. My favorite resource, I know from spying on the spreadsheet later, is about at line 114. So line 114, we're going to print off. The spreadsheet is now in the list. Each line of the spreadsheet is a object in the list, numbered from 0 onwards. And so number 114, or the index number 114 in the list, is what I want to print out, just to see how it all works so far. To see how it all works, we're going to open up the little tools panel here and open up that terminal. And in the terminal, we can write arbitrary commands, Python commands. So if I type in Python 3 to call the Python interpreter, we're just going to call our file name. So csveditor.py is the program that we're going to call. csveditor.py. And we'll run that file. And what happens? It's reading the file as we speak. And it prints out the dictionary object, with all the content from that line in a 2-item set. And so the name would have been the column heading, and then the actual name, the road shows 400 Antique Mall, is there, and then all the other data is there, longitude, telephone, email, and all that. And so this is just one example of one entry in the CSV file as rendered as a dictionary in Python. So we know it works, is the whole point. And the meat and potatoes, the whole reason for doing this, for each item in our new resources list, we are going to create a new line. And so since the lines in resources are dictionary type objects, we can assign a new key by putting in a square bracket and then plopping down a new name for this field. And so I want to make a new field that includes both parts of the contact information, the telephone and the email address. And so I'm going to call this new field contact info. And so we're adding this directly to each line's dictionary by using these square bracket notation and putting in the name of the key that we want it to be. Then on the right side, we're going to assign to that key the information we want to be there. So this is where things get kind of fun. We can access that same item, which is the temporary variable that signifies each line within the resources list. Each line in the resources list is a dictionary. We can assign to that dictionary a new key, but we're also going to dig into that item and we're going to pop out the information that we want merged. We're going to call the item by its key because, again, each item is a dictionary type object. So the telephone key corresponds directly with the name of the key here. So the telephone number is the value. So we're going to pop out this entry by calling it by its key name, and then the contents, the value for that key, will be popped out and put into this new key. And then to make things even more interesting, we're going to add that to a little empty string to add a space. 2 quotation marks signify a string. And then we're also going to add the item dot popped out email. And so we're going to pop out the telephone number, pop out the email, and assign that to a new key, the contact info. And we're going to do that for each item in the resources list all at once. And we can review that by printing this out again. I'm going to print out, or you know what, of course, just copy and paste that there. We're going to print out the resources. Interestingly, by putting this underneath this for loop, it's going to have different content because it's that version of the resource after that for loop has occurred. And so that file is saved automatically. We'll go back into our terminal and we'll rerun Python 3 with our code file, csveditor.py. Let's see what it results for us. Here we go. It looks very similar at the beginning. It's an ordered dictionary, has the key name, has the value rocho antique small, but right at the end here, we notice there's a new contact info key, which was not there just above, and the telephone number, as well as the email address, are now in that one field. So, it may not look like much here, but success, we've done it. All we need to do now is write this to a new file so that we can review the data back in our spreadsheet where we can make any other adjustments we want to make. So to do that, we're going to open a brand new file with open map data new .csv, and we're going to call that our out file as out file. Okay. And so we need to create a writer object, just like we created a reader. And the type of writer we want, corresponds to what we just did earlier. We want to use the CSV module, and we want to use the dict writer to write our out file. And this is one extra thing we need to do for the writer. We need to specify the field names. And so the field names correspond to that top row of information to give our column headings. And so we can kind of cheat here. Since we have this resources list, which has a bunch of keys corresponding to the different field names, we can just borrow that so that it includes our changes. I think this is less error prone than retyping out all these field names by hand. So we can just ask our resources list to call the very first item in that list, or any item really, and we're going to ask for the keys. This little method here provides a view on item number 0, or again, any item. We can do 114 again for the Antiques Roadshow, Antique Mall. It doesn't matter. What we're doing is we're using this method to pull the keys out into a list so that the field names are accurate. And so now we can successfully write our header. And then we can say again, for each item in our resources list, which again includes all our change data, we can simply do some writer dot write row for each item. So we're writing to the rows of our new CSV file, each item in resources. So we're just putting back out everything that we've had initially. So with that, we will run our Python script one more time. I'm going to comment out this code. I don't need anything to print out anymore. So that little hashtag will make sure that part of the code just doesn't run. And we'll run our code. Oops, so it looks like I put the name of the file incorrectly. Yes, of course. I need to specify that the mode was write. So little w there will make sure it writes to a file instead of looking for a brand new file. So no output here, that's totally fine. We're going to refresh our terminal. So now that glitch has reloaded, we see there's a new CSV file, map data new, and it looks very similar to the one before it, except you can see the telephone email header from earlier is gone, and instead it's just contact info, which is great. That's great news for us. And so from here, what we would do is download this file and then re-upload it into Google Sheets, just to take one last look, which I've already done that here. So here we are, 2 different spreadsheets with just a little bit of Python code. I solved my terrible problem where these 2 columns had to be one column non-destructively, and writing that Python code has made it easy to recombine it into one column. And so now the phone number here is great, and then the email is there, and it's all one column for all the entries. And so when I import this into the mapping software that we were using or looking at using, all that data would be there in one field. Thank goodness. And so in general, this is just a quick demonstration of what's possible with some data wrangling in Python. I'm sure you can think up some good solutions where you had issues with a spreadsheet which was just not formatted correctly, and doing it by hand would have been a really tedious or onerous task. And so that's where something like Python could come in and do something repetitious for you without creating some carpal tunnel issues for you. And so I hope that was an instructive tutorial, and I sure hope to see you for the next one. Thanks so much.